We've got trades, we've got player trades, and we even have an early NFL draft trade. What are the Minnesota Vikings and Houston Texans up to with this March NFL swap of draft picks? We will tell you right now.
NFL analyst Brian Peacock and former NFL scout Matt Williamson bring you expert NFL analysis every day in less than 30 minutes. Get an inside look into the NFL on the field and in the front office. With elite breakdowns, next-level analysis, and in-depth information only for the real NFL fans. This is Peacock and Williamson, and it starts now.
Welcome to the Peacock and Williamson NFL Show. Brian Peacock alongside Matt Williamson at BD Peacock at Williamson NFL. Thank you so much, everybody, for making us your first listen on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We love all the everydayers out there, and we always love when you subscribe on YouTube and everywhere you get your podcast. Hit the thumbs ups and hit the notification bell so you know when a new episode is live. And man, we've had some fun in the last 24 hours in the NFL. Matt, more on the trades that have happened, some free agent moves as well. And I think we know what the tea leaves are telling us about this NFL draft as well for the first, 7 picks or so, and a team jumping into that mix now, potentially in the Minnesota Vikings. This episode of Peacock and Williamson is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $200. If your bet wins, visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. Let's start with the draft trade, the latest from the NFL on this Friday morning, Matt, and it is the Minnesota Vikings and the Houston Texans pulling off a draft trade. And by my watch, Matt, it's March 15th. This isn't April 30th here. This
Right.
The draft's a week earlier. April 23rd, I think, is when the draft is. This is March 15th. So something's up right now with the Minnesota Vikings and the Houston Texans. I think more so on the Minnesota Vikings side, Matt. And the official terms of the trade that was consummated Friday is the Minnesota Vikings are moving up in the 2024 NFL draft with the Houston Texans. And the Minnesota Vikings are getting the Texans pick number 23 in the first round and number 232. And they are giving up their second round pick, the Vikings are, to Houston. That is pick 42, pick 188 in this draft, which is a sixth round pick. So the Vikings are getting pick 23, first rounder, and a seventh rounder. They're giving up their second rounder, pick 42, number 188, which is a sixth rounder, and next year's second round pick. Those are going to the Houston Texans. So the Minnesota Vikings move up, the Houston Texans move down. I know exactly what's going on for the Minnesota Vikings, and I'm going to lay it out in a minute, and we're going to do a little math too. But first, from the Houston Texans side, why move down, and why move down now without knowing what player could have fallen to you at pick 23 and not get a whole bunch of extra value in trade? Because if you look at the chart, it's kind of about right. If I'm the Houston Texans and I'm making a move down early without knowing who might be there for me at 23, I think I would want a little extra juice, and they didn't really get that.
Yeah, and I have late breaking news that we will get to. I have to put it on the side burner because this is a really good conversation, but I don't understand the Texans side of it. I mean, I'm straining. I'm doing my best to think as they are. And here's the best I could come up with was we've added so many guys in free agency. We have so many new faces that let's kick our draft capital down the road a little bit. Let's put something in the bank for the future, maybe. And I know, I think you and I both are starting to fiddle with a new mock draft here, tease for next week. And Houston all of a sudden they don't have a glaring need. Sitting there at 23, you can kind of put anyone you want there. But wouldn't you want to know who the 22 off the board were before you trade that pick? And the last thing I want to say, and this reflects a lot on the Vikings situation and maybe a team to be named later situation, we often talk about how most drafts have like 16, 17 first-round picks. This year, I think, has 23 to 25. I think getting in this neighborhood for the Vikings is very important.
I totally agree with you, which is why I love this deal for the Vikings. And what it gives them the power to potentially do on draft day, whether it's draft two really good players in the first round that both have first round grades for them, or make a trade. More on the Vikings in a second. From the Houston Texans standpoint, this tells me that they disagree with you on that, Matt, and that maybe they think the strength in this draft is the late first round, early second round area, where they would still be getting a similar player of value at 42 as they would 20 picks earlier. And this is a draft that I think could extend out more than the 15, 16, 17, 20 quote unquote first round grades that usually happen in NFL drafts. And maybe there is a little bit more. But does it get past the 30s? I'm not so sure about that. So curious with the Houston Texans and what they did here in the timing of why they did it now. It's nice to add an extra second round pick, but I love this a lot more for the Minnesota Vikings.
Yeah. I do think day 2 is very strong. The second round's a very good place to be. I think day 3 stinks this year, but I mean, I think day 2 is really strong. My hunch is, and I hope I'm not stealing your thunder, is a team to be named later that's picking high, whoever that is, told the Vikings, we could have a very serious conversation if you could get me a top 25 pick in addition to the first round pick you have now.
Right. And for the Vikings, if they want to make a move like that, they could get up and get their quarterback potentially and not give up a future first round pick, which is huge.
And that's a beauty.
Why I like this even more. And maybe a deal doesn't happen. You're getting 2 first round caliber players. And I think that move up is potentially worth it as well. And all you gave up is a future second round pick. So the Vikings now sit at pick 11 and 23 in the first round. And you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to share my screen here and bring up the trade chart, because we're going to do a little bit of math and we're going to figure out what the Vikings are up to and specifically where they are up to here in the NFL draft. So this is the trade chart from our friends at drafttech.com. They've been putting this together for years, and I love that you can go on their site and then you put in a team and kind of highlight the picks so you can see where they're picking in the NFL draft. So the highlighted picks you see on the screen right now, if you're with us on YouTube, and I'll let everybody know on the audio pods of what we're talking about here, you can see the Minnesota Vikings picks in the 2024 NFL draft highlighted. This is pre-trade. So now you go down to pick 23 where the Houston Texans are, and the Minnesota Vikings now have that pick as well, which is worth about, on the old Jimmy Johnson trade chart, and I highlight it, pick 23, Houston Texans, that's worth around 760 points. And I looked at some other trade charts, and I think the math is going to be close enough, but we can use this old Jimmy Johnson trade chart. It starts at pick 1 worth 3,000, and it's an algorithm that goes on down through the draft. Now, the Vikings don't have pick 188 here anymore, and they also don't have next year's second round pick, and they already gave up their third round pick this year, number 73, which is going to Detroit. That was part of the TJ Hawkinson trade. So pick 23 from the Houston Texans is worth 760 points. Their original pick at 11 is worth 1,250 points, Matt. When you do the math there, that's 2,010 points on the old Jimmy Johnson trade chart. Well, that gets you up easily to pick number 5 on chart value. 1,700 points is what the Chargers pick at 5 is worth. And I'm assuming if you're trying to go get a quarterback, you probably got to get up in front of 6 with the New York Giants, and they have that much ammo. Pick number 4, Arizona Cardinals, 1,800 points. You got enough there. Pick number 3, which I think is fascinating.
That's the point. Yeah.
That is the fascinating one. Could they even get up as high as number 3, Matt? The New England Patriots, that pick's worth 2,200 points. You'd have to throw in a little something else, most likely, to get that high. But I'm circling 3, 4, and 5. I think 3 and 5 are the most likely. Arizona Cardinals already have an extra first-round pick. You'd have to give them a lot, I think, to move out of the top non-quarterback in this draft, and Marvin Harrison Jr. at pick number 4, possibly doable. But they need a wide receiver, and if they go down to 11, Arizona's not going to be picking from probably the top 3 receivers in this class. So to me, it's the Chargers at 5, who also need a receiver, the Patriots at 3, who need a receiver and a quarterback, 3, 4, 5, and potentially all the way to number 3 with what I'm seeing here with the chart value, and it's the same in this chart as it is in most charts. It might be enough to get all the way to number 3 for the Minnesota Vikings, packaging number 11 and number 23. Is it Drake May? Is it Jaden Daniels? Is it J.J. McCarthy? And when you look at who's the most Kirk Cousins-y quarterback for Kevin O'Connell and the Minnesota Vikings, maybe it is J.J. McCarthy. Maybe this is a draft that things go, 1, 2, 3, 4 with quarterbacks at the top.
Absolutely could. I would think their target is May or McCarthy. Also both very, very good athletes. Sam Darnold's a very good athlete. That's a guy that they chose and they gave good money. I don't have much more to add. I wouldn't be shocked if tomorrow they trade these two firsts and something else to go to number 3 to New England and are very happy, very content to be at 3. And New England makes a trade for Justin Fields, or something like that.
Yeah,
So,
I could absolutely see that. And the Patriots have a lot of work to do. And if they are completely sold on the quarterback that they're looking at number 3, then it's a really smart move for them to move down because they have so many needs and they could potentially get, and especially in this class, I think you can sell
receivers and tackles. Yeah.
Right. And what we're looking at and what we just talked about at the top about where the strength is in this class, I think a team trading down would feel really good knowing the caliber of player they're going to get at 23. And obviously he's going to be a really good player for them at number 11 too. So maybe the Vikings would have to add some more to get up depending where they go, maybe a player, maybe another pick, maybe another later pick, but to be able to go from 11 into the top 5 and not have to give up a future first-round pick, I think would be a masterstroke by the Minnesota Vikings. And it's pretty clear they are absolutely up to something because you don't make a move now unless there's another move to be made because it's not like who's going to be there on the board for you at 23.
You're definitely talking to a third team, or fourth or fifth. There's no question about it. Last nugget on this that I have is somebody made a joke, and maybe jokes not is too strong a word. Could you trade these things for Justin Herbert and then McCarthy ends up with his old coach and then you have all these picks to draft every Wolverine available for the Chargers. Draft 7 Wolverines.
This league is crazy, Matt, and Jim Harbaugh is one of the craziest in this crazy league. I could absolutely see that happening. It would still be a shock, but maybe if it was a different coach in a different franchise, maybe no, but I think the door might be cracked open just a little bit for that as well, especially when you consider where the Chargers are with their salary cap. I mean, I don't know, to be honest with you, salary cap wise, I don't even know if Herbert's tradable, and obviously that's a way out there idea right now. I don't think that's what these teams are up to, but I'd be shocked at this point if the Minnesota Vikings aren't picking 3, 4, or 5 in the upcoming 2024 NFL draft. Next, I want to talk a little bit more about the rest. Yeah.
Aaron Donald retired 5 minutes ago.
Oh my gosh.
That was my late breaking news. So let's go to break and we'll let that stew a little bit.
Aaron Donald announces his retirement.
Yeah.
A lot happening on this Friday around the NFL. More trades, more free agent signings, and Aaron Donald done. Next. This episode of Peacock and Williamson is brought to you by Robinhood. Speaking of retirement, Aaron Donald needs to get his Robinhood account all set up here because you know that even if you have a 401k for retirement, you can still have an IRA. Robinhood has the only IRA that gives you a 3% boost on every dollar you contribute when you subscribe to Robinhood Gold. But get this, now through April 30th, Robinhood is even boosting every single dollar you transfer in from other retirement accounts with a 3% match. That's right, no cap on the 3% match. Robinhood Gold gets you the most for your retirement thanks to their IRA with a 3% match. This offer is good through April 30th. Get started at robinhood.com/boost. Subscription fees apply. And now for some legal information. Claim as of Q1 2024, validated by Radius Global Market Research. Investing involves risk, including loss. Limitations apply to IRAs and 401ks. 3% match requires Robinhood Gold for 1 year from the date of first 3% match. Must keep Robinhood IRA for 5 years. The 3% matching on transfers is subject to specific terms and conditions. Robinhood IRA available to U.S. customers in good standing. Robinhood Financial LLC member SIPC is a registered broker-dealer. Wow, the latest news around the NFL. This is a shocker, Matt. Aaron Donald is retiring from the Los Angeles Rams and the NFL, a superstar player, the best defender in the entire league during his tenure. Defensive Player of the Year awards. We're talking 20 sack seasons. There was talk last offseason that maybe he was close to the end. He decided he was coming back for another run, and now it looks like it's over. This is one I was not prepared for today. Aaron Donald, wow, retiring from the NFL, man.
Yeah, I think it's a bit of a shock because he's still awesome. The Rams outkicked their coverage last year. They look like they're building, they go sign Cam Curl to yesterday and look like they're starting to really put together a very formidable team. And now your cornerstone on defense is hanging it up. Just from a Rams perspective, this hurts a lot. I think he's an all-time great. I mean, if I had to take 2 defensive tackles to build my team with, he would definitely be one of them that have ever played the game. Pitt guy, hail to Pitt. He's certainly a big-time Pittsburgher, and I see him down at the facility that working out sometimes, actually. But unbelievable football player. He's an easy Hall of Famer, of course. He's an all-time great.
Did not expect that news today. And,
no.
Obviously, there's not really much more to add except for a phenomenal player, a phenomenal career. And he's going out with a little bit extra in the tank, which, to be honest with you, I kind of like. And I like it when players that are especially of Hall of Fame caliber are able to play in one uniform their entire career. And you associate that player with, this season and these seasons and, Defensive Player of the Year awards and Super Bowl titles and all in one uniform, an all-time great, maybe the greatest ever player for the Los Angeles Rams, man.
Yeah, he would be for most teams, to be honest. Yeah, right. I think he is. He is.
Yeah. Except for those teams with like Hall of Fame quarterbacks, right? So, wow, that from Adam Schefter, not 15 minutes ago. Rams defensive tackle Aaron Donald has announced his retirement from the NFL.
Wow, great career.
Absolutely. We've got more trades around the NFL, Matt, and teams posturing and figuring out their rosters for the 2024 season. And the Chicago Bears have added a wide receiver. We talked about why these Los Angeles Chargers might really need a wide receiver in the draft at pick number 5. Well, they lost both their starting wide receivers, and Mike Williams, who was released, and Keenan Allen now traded to the Chicago Bears for a 4th-round pick. How do you like this deal for both the Bears and the Chargers?
I hate it for the Chargers. I just think this is the ramifications of having such a brutal cap situation. And it happens the day after you. Real quick on the Chargers. I mean, Mike Williams is not a Charger anymore. He has been cut. They restructured Bosa, and it looks like Bosa and Mack will be back, but not either receiver now. I thought it'd be 1 and 1. You know what I mean? But it is. I'd rather be receiver shopping in the draft in particular than I would be edge shopping in the draft for the Chargers. But they're just going to look a lot different. I still think he's a very, very good player, and I love this for the Bears. I mean, even if you only get 1 year out of him, I would think you could probably get 2. I don't think that cost is all that bad. I mean, he's an older guy, but he's expensive. But he's phenomenal. He's a lot different than DJ Moore. Before you had to kind of keep your fingers crossed that, Rome Odunze or one of those guys would fall to 9. I don't love the chances of that happening.
And they could
still take him. Yeah, right. Exactly.
If it does happen. Right. So
right.
I love this for the Bears. You get a guy who can be a 100 catch player for you and your young quarterback that you're most likely going to draft at number 1. And you got to build that nest for your quarterback, as you always say, Matt. And so I love this for the Bears. And, obviously cap reasons. And, Keenan Allen's not going to be a long-term player for either the Chargers or the Bears anyway, but the Bears get someone now while they could still develop another rookie quarterback if they want to with all the extra picks they have. I love this move for the Bears, and one thing they do have is cap space, so that doesn't hurt them. So 4th-round pick for someone that can help your young quarterback that much. I'm all about it. Love it for the Bears.
I mean, you talk about the nest. I mean, they're going to take Caleb Williams first overall. We all know that now. And it wasn't an awful nest a year ago, but now you've added Swift, who I think is an overpay, Allen, which is a perfect piece of a nest, a competition at center between Shelton and Bates, both of whom they added this offseason. Fine, that's been a rough area. Throw Gerald Everett into the mix, along with Komet, and you already had DJ Moore, and you already had some pieces in place on the line. Like, it's a really soft, nice landing spot for the 1st overall pick.
Yeah, I don't think you're forced into anything if you're the Bears. So best player available. You go wide receiver there. You go offensive line there. You go the first defensive player. Maybe you have your pick of every defender in the draft there for the Bears.
Maybe even trade down and pick up more picks. Right?
Absolutely. Maybe the Vikings are only going up a couple spots from 11 to number 9. Who knows? So interesting there. Love it for the Bears. And Keenan Allen, he might only have 1 more year left in his career. Who knows how that goes? But obviously it's a need, and the Bears were able to make that happen for themselves. We got a couple of young quarterbacks on the move, Matt, from 2022, Desmond Ridder and Sam Howell, 2 separate trades here. We had talked about the Seattle Seahawks being a landing spot potentially for Justin Fields. They did take our advice and go get a young quarterback, but they got a different young quarterback there, and it's going to be Sam Howell now for the Seattle Seahawks.
Yeah, and just real quick, sticking with the first overall and young quarterback theme here, wouldn't the first overall pick last year have sure been benefited to have a Keenan Allen to throw to before he got to Carolina? You know, if it only cost you a 4th-round pick, how much different would his rookie year been? You know,
or rookie Justin Fields.
exactly, no doubt about it. So Howell and Ridder both on the move. They're from that bad Kenny Pickett Willis draft class, you know, and they're not starters. But I wonder, you know, is it just time to get them out of the building, because we're going to have a young first overall pick and just don't want Howell in his way. You know, he's a former starter. He's going to prepare like a starter. I'm not saying Ridder or Howell are bad guys even a little bit. They're not. That's not what I mean at all. But their new teams now get a nice cheap backup that has experience. I like the teams receiving Ridder and Howell more than the other way around, to be honest with you. Not that they're great, but we know how quarterbacks get hurt, and they're cheap and they've played, and Ridder can do Kyler Murray-ish things. And, you know, I see the allure there. Didn't give much up. And I do think it's kind of interesting to throw Rondell Moore into that mix in Atlanta now with Mooney too, you know?
I love what the Falcons are doing on offense right now. Obviously, they found their quarterback in the short term, and they're putting together a basketball team of eligible receivers for him to throw to. You got Bijan Robinson run and pass. You've got the power forward in Drake London. You've got your center in Kyle Pitts, and now you've got like Muggsy Bogues there with
Spud Webb,
Rondell Moore. And so I really like how they're putting varied pieces and varied skill sets together on offense, and I can't wait to see what Zach Robinson's offense looks like there, and gives themselves an opportunity now at pick 8. How about this? I thought about this yesterday, actually, before the Vikings trade, and I think the Vikings are going up higher than pick 8. But what about the double whammy potentially? When I was looking at my mock draft, I got to pick 8, and I hadn't made any quarterback trades yet, and I was like, man, that's a double whammy if the Atlanta Falcons not only sign Kirk Cousins out from under the Vikings, but then hose them in a trade, because now the Vikings have to trade up at 8 with the Atlanta Falcons and give them extra picks to go get their next quarterback.
That's pretty great. So I haven't given a ton of thought to the top 10 anymore, but it's a lot different lens to look at them, especially that 8-9 spot that you mentioned too. Is there a defensive player worth taking for the Bears and Falcons, or are people going to start trading up for tackles left and right at that point? Or who knows, you know?
I think as we look at it now today, 24 hours ago, I think I thought I knew exactly what the top, you know, every mock draft with no trades in the top 7, you know what that's going to look like. It's going to go 3 quarterbacks, 3 wide receivers, and then go up at 7, right? But you throw one more quarterback in the mix, now we're talking at pick 8. Maybe that's not the biggest need. Maybe teams are swinging up with the Falcons at pick 8 to go get the 7th guy off the board that is not a quarterback, and potentially that's alt. If they want the best tackle in the draft, potentially that's one of those 3 wide receivers. So this Vikings move does make things a lot more interesting if they indeed end up in the top 7 of the draft and go get themselves a quarterback.
Yeah, and I also think Brock Bowers is a wild card from 8 to 12 or in that neighborhood too, you know?
More free agent moves. Hollywood going to the Kansas City Chiefs next. This episode of Peacock and Williamson is brought to you by FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. Say goodbye to busted brackets, because FanDuel lets you bet on every game of the tourney. Whether you're betting on a big upset or a 1 seed, it's time to go dancing on America's #1 sports book, because right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. That's right, 200 extra bucks to play with and use on point spreads, money lines. You can even pick who's going to win it all in the tourney. All at FanDuel. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and bet on college hoops until they cut down the nets. And of course, you've got NFL draft props, you've got NBA basketball, you've got hockey, you've got Major League Baseball getting going here at the end of the month, and all of it at FanDuel.com/lockedon. I hate that Hollywood Brown is going to the Kansas City Chiefs, Matt, because that means it wrecks all of the mock drafts that had Xavier Worthy out of Texas going pick 32 and adding that same level of speed to the Chiefs offense. Clearly, that's something they needed. Clearly, that's something they were going to get, and maybe not in the draft anymore at pick 32. So I don't know if this changes much for you for what the draft outlook is for the Kansas City Chiefs at the end of the first round, but clearly they need something down the field and with a threat to replace someone like Marquez Valdez-Scantling, and that is going to be Hollywood Brown now for KC.
Yeah, and I've always mocked a receiver at 32. I won't now. Maybe it'll just be best defensive player available. They always been drafting defense like crazy. Tackle wouldn't hurt either in a deep tackle draft. I mean, there's no question about that. And I'm not implying Marquise Brown is Tyreek Hill. Of course he isn't, but none of us have to squint too hard to see this fit.
No doubt. Yeah.
You know.
Some people are freaking out. They're like, oh my God, I can't believe the Kansas City Chiefs did this. What an amazing move. I don't think Hollywood Brown's that much of a difference maker. I just think it's a good fit, but it's not like, oh no, look out, rest of the league. They got Hollywood Brown. Now it's over. I don't think that's necessarily it either. And to be honest, I still wouldn't be shocked if they drafted a receiver at 32.
I think that could happen. And he's much different than Rice. You know, Rice is closer to Kelsey than he is Marquise Brown.
Right. Yeah. Rice is like closer to the line of scrimmage, catch and run, yak sort of a player. And they needed that downfield threat. They still might need another player that can get open and develop with the rest of that group of receivers there in Kansas City, because they do have a lot of guys. And I think we're starting to see, though, what that looks like. It's Kelsey, obviously, is number one. But then you have Rice, who developed as a rookie. And then you have Hollywood Brown as the 1-2 on the outside. And we can maybe have less of that rotation there at wide receiver for the Chiefs.
I think it's more of a clear upgrade over Hardman and Valdez-Scantling than it is the next Tyreek Hill.
Right. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, you know what I mean?
What do you think is the biggest move in free agency from the last 24 hours with so many of them? There's Eric Armstead. He's leaving San Francisco. He's going to the Jacksonville Jaguars. What move do you think was the most impactful that we haven't covered yet, Matt?
That's one, but the other defensive tackle move I really, really like is DJ Reader going to the Lions. I mean, the Lions have been aggressive with trades and free agency now to attack D-line and secondary, which is clearly the weaknesses of that team. They also now sit in the draft and can pretty much take best available or an edge to put opposite Hutchinson. Reader's a really good player, and I think you get a little bit of a discount just because he's coming off an injury. You know, he's not real healthy at the moment. I haven't liked hardly anything the Jags have done in free agency. I always think they're overspenders, but I'm an Armstead fan, and I think
he's a good player. By the way, Jaguars GM Trent Baalke drafted him in 2022.
I thought so, yeah.
To the 49ers, and he loves his big, long defensive linemen and athletes there. And Armstead was a really good player for the 49ers. Solid addition there, but the Jags do feel kind of aimless with the way they make some moves. And it's like, what exactly are you building over here? Are you just collecting humans, or are you putting together a team? And I've had that question for the Jaguars for a while now. But Eric Armstead is a good addition and a good player, and he'll fit right in there. DJ Reader, I love. Like, if the Detroit Lions defense can get off the field on third downs, they're going to be a problem, right? So everything they do for the next 5 weeks better be about third downs, because they've got first and second down covered on defense.
Yeah, they do.
I love DJ Reader. He's one of the best, if not the best, run-stuffing defensive tackles in the entire league when he's healthy. You got Aiden Hutchinson. You could add a Chop Robinson late in the first round. Most likely, I think we'll see a lot of cornerbacks in those mock drafts for the Detroit Lions in that spot.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I would not be done at corner. And you put him next to Ali McNeil. I mean, that's a lot of power, and they're not just run stuffers. They can push the pocket a little bit too. One last one. I mean, there's a handful of other ones. Cam Curl went to the Rams. Dotson goes to Seattle. Nice linebacker pickup. Devin White's a big name, goes to the Eagles. But Cincinnati brought Von Bell back after letting him go for a year. That was their second safety that they spent money on, Geno Stone being the other. And it was kind of an underreported story because of Burrow's injury. You know, why did the Bengals fall off last year? Burrow was hurt. But the defense was night and day last year than it was 2 years ago. And they put so much emphasis on their safeties pre and post snap. I think that was a big thing, is they went with 2 new safeties last year, and that was a very, very failed experiment. Now they're going to get 2 smart veterans that they can trust.
The NFL never stops. We're going to start looking a lot differently, I think. We're going to start seeing a lot of Byron Murphy out of Texas to the Rams at pick number 19 in those mock drafts without Aaron Donald in-house. And, you know, you talk about Cam Curl going to the Rams, and it's like, well, that's great, but that's like deck chairs on the Titanic. You just lost Aaron Donald. How do you
right.
that if
you're not a one-for-one swap?
Wow. Yeah. Okay. So the NFL never sleeps. It's never dull. It is always fun, and it's always fun to chat about those moves with my co-host Matt Williamson, and along with you listeners, the everydayers out there. We appreciate you. We love you. Make sure you're subscribed on YouTube and everywhere you get your podcasts. Matt and I back Monday. We've got mock drafts, and I think that's really now the first wave of free agency is over. A lot of these trades have happened this week. Of course, the latest moves we will have broken down, but it's mock draft season. Let's make sense at the top of the NFL draft now. Coming up next week here on Peacock and Williamson.